ago where I was really unhappy with us. Let's just see where we are on all those things. This is also like our fifth virtual event today.
Yep, and we're live.
Hey, we're live. All right. Hey, welcome to Crazy Cabin Fever Cocktails, episode 40-something large number. I am Tim Niddle with Distilled Living. We're produced by Fascination Design. So Afton has a cocktail for us tonight. Will you give us a little bit of the cocktail that you're going to do, and then we'll talk about flavor profiles?
Yeah, absolutely. So this cocktail is obviously inspired by the election because all of the back and forth is making me bananas. All right, how cheesy was that on the cheese scale between a 1 and 10? 10 being maximum. No, so where we've been doing so many presentations lately, Woodford shows up a lot in our flights, and this has a really prominent banana flavor note in it, which is very interesting. And it's not unique to Woodford. There's a few other products that exemplify this. And so I was interested in going a little bit into why we're getting that flavor, where it comes from, and other brands where we can find it. And then I wanted to play on that flavor and really amplify it in a cocktail. So Tim, if you want to do all the explanation piece, and then I'll whip up something tasty to drink.
Ah, that sounds awesome. So, well, yeah, banana, there are a lot of different flavors in bourbon, right? We talk about 200 potential flavors in bourbon, but there's no additives. So how do you get a banana note out of the regular 6 sources of flavor in bourbon, and achieve that? So it's really interesting to me because we look at the grains as one of our primary sources, right? We're mostly corn, but then always malted barley, and then usually rye or wheat. Well, the flavor of what we think of and associate with the flavor of banana, that particular ester, it can be produced and synthesized by fermenting malted barley with very specific yeast strains and then distilling it to isolate that flavor. So like if you think of the Laffy Taffy, kind of that fake overly banana, like more banana than real bananas are, that's how that note is produced. So in our bourbon, with the right yeast strain, and different yeast strains are going to have different secondary congener characteristics, in the right environment and with the right malted barley handling, and right distillation parameters, you got to get all those things right. The more you're gonna produce and concentrate that banana note, and it is particularly pronounced in Woodford and other Brown-Forman products because the yeast strains that they use, which are all relative yeast strains, the relatives of each other, they just have this particular strong banana character. The Brown-Forman products are often described as like a banana nut bread. That's what we're getting out of the yeast strains. And actually, we're going to see that strengthen. One of the really interesting things is when I was at Woodford Reserve, they moved to a different barley handling. So you cook your grains, but then you need to cool them before you introduce them into the mash. And so you start with boiling your corn, cool it down to 90 degrees or so, maybe a little less, introduce your yeast. And then your second grain is always going to be your rye or your wheat, and your last grain is your malted barley because it's so sensitive. Now, if you go from cooking, which you cook malted barley at a low temperature, like 140 degrees, and you drop it very slowly, you just let ambient temperature drop your malted barley, you lose a lot of sugars and a lot of enzymes. So in order to preserve those and increase the yield, they put in a chiller at Woodford. If you go visit Woodford Reserve, you'll see these big coils underneath the still floor. And that allowed them to basically pump cooked malted barley almost instantly and saved a whole lot of time, but it also preserved a lot of those enzymes. And as soon as they put those in, the very first time they used it, the banana note went through the roof. Because they're preserving the initial structures that the yeast are going to convert into those banana esters. So in another couple of years, we'll probably see even more banana character coming out of Woodford Reserve. Now, we have been drinking a lot of Woodford in our tasting, so I'm going to switch to some Old Forester Signature. But again, being a higher malted barley recipe, being 10% malted barley, and using that Brown-Forman yeast strain, even though it's a different distillery, we're still going to get a strong banana character. And one of the two major concepts in cocktail design and food design and pairing is complement and near complement. The other being contrast. How do you make things that are very, very different but work together? So I'm curious what you're going to do with banana and banana note in a cocktail.
Okay, well, hopefully I hit those formulas for cocktails correct with this one, which I think I'm going to call the Bourbonana, because you can combine those words together so well. It essentially follows the old-fashioned formula. So we're going to use bourbon, a type of syrup, and then some bitters, but with a little bit of a tweaking. So I'm going to start with 2 full ounces because we want a good solid drink, and I'm using Woodford Reserve. This does have that nice light banana note in it that we all noticed, but it also has kind of some strong baking spice notes in it. I get a lot of like nutmeg and cinnamon, a little bit of clove, very much like the banana nut bread that Tim was talking about. So I think that'll mix nicely in our cocktail. So 2 ounces of the Woodford, and I've made a banana syrup. So this is really easy to do. It's extremely sweet. I did a 2-to-1 ratio on sugar to water, and then added the bananas and macerated it in the syrup as it cooled to release as much of that sweet ripe banana flavor in there as it kind of sat there and absorbed all of that. And I really wanted to add a slight texture element. So I'm going to throw in 1/2 ounce of 50/50 cream. This is just going to make it nice and creamy, which goes very well with banana things. Think of a smoothie. And then, so we've got a, very sweet, very banana heavy cocktail at this point. But to add some of that contrast, I opted for cardamom bitters. I wanted to amp up a little bit of a spice, something with a bit more punch to it to sort of counteract all that sweetness from the super sugary banana syrup. So I'm going to do 2 dashes from my little mini Scrappy's bitter sampler set that I like so much. I should get a full-size one. And then to add to that complement, I'm going to do 2 dashes of black walnut. So it's a little bit more complexity. So 2 of each. And then we're going to give this a good shake and a strain over fresh ice. So I did do some experimenting with this yesterday to get all the ratios correct. So after about 3 or 4 versions of this, I can say that the final product is definitely good and drinkable. So hopefully if anybody replicates this, you will agree that we hit it on the spot with this final formula. All right, bear with me here. All right, that one gets a little extra on the shake because of all the thick, very viscous syrup and the cream that's in the cocktail. And because of that as well, because of how the consistency being a little bit thicker and the high sweet content, I do recommend serving this over ice. That slight dilution as you drink it is just going to really help balance it out. So, and if you want to be a little flamboyant and throw a garnish on, of course, we're just going to do a banana slice. Keep the peel on. It'll be easier to handle and it just adds to the aesthetic. And we'll skewer it right through the center that way. Very nice. And we are all finished with our Bourbonana. So it's a perfect nightcap, perfect election nightcap. So cheers you all and enjoy your banana flavored bourbon.
Thank you for that. That sounds awesome. That is probably my cocktail tomorrow. We'll just see what time of day it winds up being my cocktail tomorrow. All right. And thank you for joining us for Crazy Cabin Fever Cocktails. Next week, same time, 9 p.m.-ish Eastern on Wednesday. And we will get our cocktail recipes up on the website at some point, which we are not guaranteeing when that's going to be exactly, but it'll happen. Anything else?
Nope, that's
All right,
it.
there we go. Good night, everybody. Thanks, Afton.